The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.
What time is it? It's clobbering time!
I am the face that runs the place.
You need Roman to be out of the main title picture for a little while. Like, just, you give him a break. This is the only way you're possibly going to get the crowd to do anything but boo him. Just give him a break.
I'm the greatest wrestler in the world.
It was exciting to see because it kind of reminded me of Reading Rainbow a little bit.
All he needed was LeVar Burton to come in there.
This would have definitely got a 5-star pay-per-view for me.
Show of the year.
Yeah, show of the year.
How you doing?
What's up, everybody? I am not going to be a part of this show this week. I know I've already missed a Monday night show, but I'm sadly going to miss this one as well. I am still on that party ship. As you can hear, I've missed wrestling. In fact, I kind of created my own wrestling on board. It's easy when you got drunk people around you. You can start fights, and my booking decisions weren't always great. Didn't always work out the best way, but some of my main events did go over pretty well. But sometimes I got complaints about too much blood. Who knows? These guys, Paul and Sean, are going to be talking a lot about NXT, TNA Impact Wrestling, Lucha Underground, and some other great stuff in the world of wrestling that you guys don't want to miss. Have a great show, enjoy it, and I'll see you next week.
Ladies and gentlemen, wrestling to the max.
And your hosts, Gary Vaughn, Sean Garmer, and Paul Leeser.
Hello and welcome to Wrestling the Max, episode 216, part 2. And of course, I am not Gary. You just heard him on his cruise ship there. Luckily, this is the last show we got to do without him because it's kind of weird doing the actual numbered shows. It's okay to do like a paper review or extra or something, but these normal shows, it's weird not having Gary tell me something or us disagree about something for about 10 minutes before we actually get going on the show. But Paul, we will have to soldier on without the man. Glad to know you're doing better, though.
Yeah, I'm feeling a little bit better, but really it's just good to know that Gary's found a nice hobby there on the cruise ship, booking a pro wrestling promotion out there for him. And, it seemed like he was having a rough go of it, seemingly. But, he's still alive, so obviously they didn't lynch him or anything. That's good news.
Yeah, forget about that Phoenix Wrestling. Just go over there to that cruise ship.
Yeah, just follow Gary on the cruise ship. It's where all the quality wrestling's to be had these days.
Exactly. You never know who could pop up under the sea there. So,
bet you that show's main evented by Ken Shamrock.
You know it, man. Him and his old. If he can barely make it out there, Gary's making sure that's the first guy he booked. He got Naito on there somewhere too.
Somewhere, yeah.
Even if it's on video, just Naito and all those Ingobernables are on the ship with Gary. But hopefully he is having a good time. I'm sure he'll tell us all about it on the Monday show. And we were going to have a WWE 2K17 Impressions, but unfortunately Austin is having problems with Skype, as are apparently a lot of people. It's having this weird thing going on with it right now. So hopefully we can have him on the Monday show. But I don't know when that thing's ever going to get fixed. Hopefully it's soon, because that kind of sucks. It's always a cool thing to have this every year where we get to at least have a week where we talk about games on this show. Apparently we do have Austin. Are you there? Austin. Well, I love having Static showing up on the show.
Seems
But,
like a fan called in.
Yeah. Literally and figuratively. So, there is stuff to talk about on the show aside from the regular things we do, which is, TNA Impact Wrestling, Lucha Underground, NXT. Billy Corgan has decided to sue TNA. Man, this saga just does not end, Paul. I mean, what else is TNA going to go through at this point?
Some other production company is suing him too over money owed. Like, it's getting insane, Sean. Like, I don't. Is there even going to be a company left to run at this point?
I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised if just randomly one day we just hear about, hey, this show ended.
Shocker. Yeah. I know I won't be completely surprised. The article I read wasn't extremely specific over what Billy was suing him over. The production company, however, is suing for what's owed to them since they helped put on Bound for Glory and everything, and that's in the tune of $223,000 plus, which I imagine TNA doesn't have.
Bad. He's apparently Austin is trying to get set up at the moment. I wish there was a way I could silence him or something, but apparently I can't. So, either way, I mean, this is just. I'd love to know if they better really be selling off that video library pretty soon to get some of that money back because, I don't know how much longer they're going to be able to survive. At some point, we're probably going to hear about them going into bankruptcy or something, I imagine. Like, I really can't imagine that they can just take this lawsuit and keep going with it. I mean, Billy Corgan is a guy that has some money. Obviously, he keeps fronting money to TNA and not getting it. Do you think that, like, Dixie might have told him, hey, I'll sell you the company, and now she's kind of reneging on that? And this is what
maybe.
this is all about?
Maybe, but she has a lot more to lose if TNA has to declare bankruptcy, right? Because then, certainly, like, all the debt goes away, certainly, but you have a whole bunch of other problems that could come up. Like, WWE obviously could buy them cheaper. I think, doesn't a whole bunch of their stuff go up for sale or something like that? I don't know exactly how bankruptcy works, but...
Well, I mean, the only assets they would technically have, because I'm assuming the TV companies would just pull out at that point, is the tape library, which, if that deal's not already in place, that means WWE could come in and get it for an even cheaper price. I don't really know. I mean, Billy Corgan wanted nothing to do with TNA anyway, so I'd imagine he wouldn't want the library. So unless a former TNA wrestler or some crazy person decides to step in, or perhaps I don't know if Bruce Starr or somebody would do something weird since they used to be affiliated with the NWA, if they would even think about it. But I just can't imagine there's just a ton of people going, oh yeah, let's get some of that TNA tape library. So,
and Jarrett might be on that short list too.
I mean, he can barely get whatever his promotion is off the. What the hell is GFW even doing right now?
I don't know, to be honest with you. I assume they're still scrambling to find a television station that wants to host them, but I mean, Jarrett did run that company for a long time, and if he thinks he can get any use out of that tape library, or maybe he just wants it because, I mean, he sunk a lot of his own time into that promotion too. I could certainly think that, and then maybe he goes to WWE and sells it so he can get GFW going. I don't know. There's a lot of different ways this could go. The saga continues to get more topsy-turvy, and I just don't even know anymore. Like, they're covered taping-wise until the end of the year, but do we even see them make it to January? Do they even make it through the tapes? tapings that they've done. You know, I haven't a clue anymore.
Yeah, supposedly they're going to, I think, air recap shows until January. From, I think, the end of November till January. So, yeah, at least we get a month off from TNA. But, I mean, I wonder if, like, Matt Hardy would... okay. He says he is having to get Skype on actual Windows and not just his desktop, so this could take a while. While we go through that, I guess it's just this thing with TNA. Like, honestly, I feel bad for the wrestlers. I feel bad for all the people that just have to constantly hear all this stuff about their company. They hear all these rumors, and then they're having to refute them. Nobody ever comes out and says what's really going on. This is just a sad state of affairs with this company.
Yeah, I mean, we know communication has never been TNA's strong suit, and really, in like the last 5 years, I feel like it's been pretty poor as far as management to talent, or even management to the press, if there's even been any sort of real big connection there to speak of. But certainly this whole situation is just a giant mess. Like you said, I mean, I'd feel bad for the wrestlers, but I mean, at least they've gotten paid or hopefully they've gotten paid. We know that doesn't always happen, but hopefully they've gotten paid for these last tapings that they have. They know the situation they're in, and I mean, really, I'm sure they're hoping Billy Corgan ends up coming out of this with a new promotion that they can work for.
Yeah, who knows? It's just the thing with them getting paid is so weird because supposedly Dixie says that the only reason they don't get paid is because they're waiting for money to come in from one of the TV people or whatever, and it always sounds like a bunch of BS when she talks about it. It's like, can we really believe anything that's coming out of your mouth, Dixie? Because
Right.
all you ever do is say this is not happening, and then, oh wait, it does happen, or oh wait, this person was wrong, but wait, they're right. It's like, okay, just, I'm not saying you need to go on Twitter and go, yeah, we're not really paying our talent people. It's like, I'm not saying that's what you need to go and actually commit to doing. It's just a little bit more honesty would not hurt you at all at this point.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, you don't have to tell the news outlets anything if you don't want to, but at least be honest with the people who are working for you and trying to stick with you through this. You know, that they at least deserve that.
Yeah, certainly. And, I mean, we'll obviously on Monday, if anything else has come out over the weekend about it, we'll be able to talk about it more. But honestly, this lawsuit's just kind of in the beginning stages. It's probably not going to get settled for a while because those things can get held up in court for ages. Look at how long it took Vince to, and I don't know that he ever got anything on the suing Scott Hall and Kevin Nash. So, I mean, if you get the right people, it all depends on money, and if Dixie gets her parents involved, who knows how long that could get stuck in litigation or whatever. But I really hope that gets settled, and whatever is supposed to happen out of it just happens, and we get out of it, and we can, maybe there's a future for TNA, maybe there's not, who knows. So, you know, one thing we didn't talk about with that network thing is that apparently part of the Hall of Fame would become a fan voting deal. Like, this is really, I mean, that's, obviously you can take the Hall of Fame for what you wanted to. Obviously there's a lot of people that don't like it, and Bret Hart even came out and was, you know, he said his thing about the free birds, and we actually, I think, forgot to talk about this on the show. On Monday, that he has now apologized, obviously, as Bret Hart likes to do. He'll say stuff and then say I'm sorry later, but he attacked the Freebirds for not drawing in WWE and for being drunks, and that apparently Andre the Giant got them fired at one point, and that they did nothing in WWE, so they should have never been in the WWE Hall of Fame. Michael Hayes obviously pointed out the whole, we drew pretty much everywhere else. Why does that matter that we didn't necessarily draw in WWE like you did? And Brett's obviously apologized about it or whatever, but he's mainly mad the fact that the Freebirds got in before a lot of other people that he feels should have been in. It just seems like Grumpy Brett all over again, but anything you take out of it?
No, because you're right. It is Grumpy Brett, and I don't know. We've talked about the Hall of Fame a lot on this show in the past, and for me, and I think at least a lot of other people see it too, it's not strictly just what you do in WWE. WWE's Hall of Fame is very much a pro wrestling Hall of Fame. It doesn't acknowledge a lot of the old timers or stuff like that, the people who deserve to be in there, guys like George Hackenschmidt and all this other stuff, but certainly they do at least try to draw in as many big name talents as they can from all over the world. We've seen it with Shinya Hashimoto. We've seen it with Mil Mascaras. And granted, I mean, a couple of these guys have worked a couple of WWE shows and all that, but certainly their impact in pro wrestling was felt much larger elsewhere outside of the WWE. And it's the same with the Freebirds. The Freebirds were one of the staple acts during the territory days. They drew big money for World Class. They drew big money for Georgia. They drew big money in WCW whenever they got there for what the Cup of Coffee. They were only there for like a year, I think, but they're still a big part. Like there's every pay-per-view, I think from 91 to 92, they pretty much opened. So to say that they don't deserve to be in there is a little silly.
Yeah, they certainly do deserve to be in there, especially going in Texas where, like, aside from Atlanta, that's kind of their place, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand where I mean, I get Brett wants some of these Canadian guys in there that were never in, and he wanted the whole Hart Foundation in for them and all that kind of stuff, and Owen, and we know the hang up with Owen, and he knows the hang up with Owen. I don't even know why that continues to be a thing, because it's out of everybody's hands at this point. It's between Martha and WWE if she ever says yes, you know. And
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know why that is still, and Skype is being weird for me now. This is great. It's doing that stupid not responding thing. So if I'm seeing if maybe I can call him. Nope. But yeah, it's fan voting. That's one thing I never thought Vince would just give up, like, the reins to, of saying, is it going to be a certain amount of people that's going to be fan voted? Is it going to be the whole thing? Like, I can't imagine it's going to be like the All-Star game or whatever. We're just going to have a ballot and the fans are going to be able to vote everybody that gets in.
I mean, if I remember correctly, doesn't the Hall of Fame, or not the Hall of Fame, the All-Star Game, don't the fans only get a certain percentage of the vote, or am I thinking of something that they wanted to do at one point that never actually got put into practice?
Well, depending on the sport, the fans get more or less. Like, I think the NBA, the fans get a lot,
Mm-hmm.
whereas with baseball, the fans don't get too much, and the NFL doesn't care. So, I think with baseball, the fans, like, they get that write-in vote, and they get something else. They get a percentage, but it's not as big as, say, like the NBA, because obviously the baseball one matters. So,
right.
You know, I think hockey's kind of the same way. It's more of a fan thing. So, I would imagine that what will happen is probably the fans will get to pick a couple, and then then it'll be the regular process for the writers and Vince and whoever picks the other people.
Yeah, I would think at least your headliner and the couple other big ones that you would have that year would certainly still be WWE, and maybe you have one ballot that's specifically for the fans to pick. I mean, you still have the Warrior Award and all that stuff too, the Celebrity Wing, all that good stuff. So. And they always had the one spot for the older generation guys, the way backs in the 50s and beyond and stuff like that. So, I certainly have no problem with them if they're only going to give them one spot on and to pick for the ballot for a year, I think that's fine. If it's for the whole thing, that could get out of hand pretty quick. Especially when it comes to guys that you can't deliver on, like an Owen.
Right, especially like an Owen, or just having a lot of guys that obviously have passed on.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't want to have a Hall of Fame full of guys that have passed on. So, that's something you've got to think about as well. I'd imagine that now that Goldberg is going to be part of the fold, he's probably going to be the headliner this year. If not him, starting to run out of names, that aren't some of the people that are around now. Like, I guess you could do The Rock because it's in Orlando if you wanted to.
Yeah, they could do The Rock. I mean, there's other names they could do, I think. It's just, you're not going to have the same impact with some people that you could with others. And, I mean, you're going to have to get to the point where some of your headliners are going to be, sadly, have already passed on. So, I don't know exactly where you go. I mean, but The Rock is certainly not. I would think Goldberg probably would be the way they would go, the good pick.
Yeah, I mean, it would make sense if he's going to have that match with Brock, and who knows if he's going to have another match or anything like that. That's obviously up in the air and up to him and up to everybody else. I'd imagine he'd want to do one more WrestleMania where it meant something, but who knows? All he just wants to make sure his kid watches him wrestle. He doesn't say that he wants to do it multiple times, but the dude still looks good for his age. He's not the buff guy he was, but still looks really good for all everything he's been through and how old he is.
Yeah, I mean, he still looks like Goldberg, which is the important part.
Right, exactly. Another talking about comebacks. She has been involved with NXT a couple of times, been a trainer, that kind of thing. And I remember when she was doing her TNA run, when she left, of course, obviously, that had to do more with, having the kid at that time. And everybody kept saying, okay, well, when she's done with, those first few months of after the pregnancy and she wants to come back, she'll go to NXT. And it was this thing for a while. Then it just totally quieted down, never heard of it again. She tried to do the GFW thing when that was sort of starting up, and that, that's where it's at this point. And now she is going to do a takeover show at the one in Canada in Toronto against Asuka.
Boy, I don't like your chances of living. Honestly, I think, like we were talking about the pre-show, I can't remember if it was you or Patrick, and honestly, maybe it's secondary at this point, but going outside and picking up bigger names to face Asuka, maybe at one or two takeovers, is a great way to go while you're building up the rest of the division, because certainly a lot of these girls still need a lot of work, still need some seasoning, still need some character growth for the fans to get behind them before they challenge Asuka, and it certainly helps add at least to the aura and mystique that Asuka is this unbeatable badass whenever she starts beating legends like a Mickie James, or if they ever go to a Victoria or, a Medusa, I think would be really cool to see too.
I wonder if she could do one more. That would be pretty awesome. I wonder if she could do one more match with her. And I mean, they do have the Japan, having worked in Japan all those years, that would be a really cool way for her to go, because she was always so different from everybody else. The show that we talked about, the Power Struggle show, looks like Michael Elgin is not going to be on that. His eye he had to have surgery on that eye, and he will not be able to compete in that IC title match, so Jay Lethal will replace Michael Elgin.
It still doesn't change the outcome of that match, but certainly it's cool to see Jay Lethal step up and get that opportunity to bridge the feud from Ring of Honor to New Japan and challenge for the championship.
Yeah, it's cool that, he's been there as ROH World Champion and won. Now he gets to face or go for an IWGP title, so that's pretty cool on his part, and hopefully it's one of these where he really gets to look strong, especially since there's been that story that they have going in ROH. So hopefully that they get to, hopefully the Japanese fans get to see this story kind of play out and stuff, because it would kind of suck for them not to get to see that and see how it's built and everything. But I'm sure the match will still be good and all that. I mean, it's only been a couple days. We did the show on Tuesday, so I don't know.
There's a video on NXT's Facebook page where William Regal announces that Hideo Itami is indeed out for the Dusty Classic, and that Kota Ibushi still wants to compete in the tournament, so his replacement partner is T.J. Perkins.
Well, I'm guessing that would mean almost everybody from the Cruiserweight Classic, except for like Grand Metalik and Tozawa, are in that tournament at this point.
I think a lot of the bigger names, yeah, they're certainly around there, and that's cool. I as much as I really wanted to see Hideo and Kota team up, it's TJP and Kota, it's like I'd say it's making lemonade out of lemons, but to call those guys lemons is just a total term of disrespect.
Yeah, I can see what you're talking about there. Well, did they get to do the first round match though, or not? He got injured?
I think he got injured, and they haven't taped that far yet.
Man, that sucks. We don't even get to see like their first match or anything. That just sucks, man. I hate that. Well, we did get to find out that officially, I mean, I'm not spoiling this for anybody at this point. We know who it was. Roderick Strong is officially signed to NXT, and he is going to be Austin Aries' partner. Obviously, they have history from ROH and everything. Now that it's finally a thing, how do you feel about that?
I'm pretty amped. Next reuniting in a WWE ring is going to be about as surreal as watching Bobby Roode show up in NXT, and about as surreal as watching Sting walk through those WWE curtains for the first time. It's Roderick Strong in WWE. There's something I thought I would never see.
Yeah, I mean, talk about a guy that you're just like, well, he's definitely not the kind of guy you'd think, okay, we're going after, and we're going to get to see them on the episode next week. So that's even a bigger deal, too, because they're right around the corner. But, it's one of these things where it's like, man, not a guy that you go, yeah, he's going to be a WWE guy. Yeah, he's obviously a talented wrestler, but not having the mic skills was always something I go, okay, look, King of the Backbreaker, just wonderful talent, but I can't see Vince going, okay, this is somebody I want right now, and just that power of NXT, man.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's a similar project to what Seth Rollins was, somebody who has it all in the ring put together, but really needs to work on the microphone and charisma aspects. And I think Roderick knows how to carry himself in the ring very well, but whenever it comes to microphone, he's never been anything to write home about. So certainly it'll be interesting to see if the same effect that WWE had on Seth will work on Roderick.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, and he's the guy, too, that he can draw. You don't have to rush him up to the main roster, and then if this tag team thing even goes beyond this, if Aries does eventually go up to the main roster, you do get where Strong can just be a singles wrestler, and you can start stories with him and everything. So I don't think that's a bad deal.
Yeah, I don't think so either, and certainly there are a lot of great matches he can have right there in NXT now. Some we've seen before. Obviously, him and Aries would be a great matchup, but like Shinsuke, sign me up for that. I let him and Atom. I think he might have wrestled Kenta before whenever Kenta did the deal in Ring of Honor, but there are lots of great matchups he can have there in NXT. So somebody I am not at all going to be sad to see stick around NXT for a long period of time.
So, Sasha Banks says, she wouldn't be the first one, obviously, but she says she wants to be in the Royal Rumble.
So, I don't have a problem with including women in the Royal Rumble. The ones they have included, though, are usually the bigger girls or bigger physiqued girls. Chyna, Beth Phoenix, Awesome Kong have shown up in the Rumble. They do a couple things, and it's usually pretty cool, but ultimately it doesn't really matter too much. So if she just wants to put on her resume, I think that's okay. I don't know how far you could take it, because Sasha's a talent that you have a lot going for right now. I don't know how well a run in a Rumble would help her or hurt her.
Yeah, the thing is, too, like, once you do something like that, it's, okay, can you go farther than this? Because we did see on NXT where they had, Nikki Cross debuting as part of Sanity beat up a man. Normally we don't see that very often unless you're somebody like Nia Jax. So I don't know if that means anything if we're going to start crossing that line of intergender wrestling ever. But I mean, could you see a point where, obviously they did this at one point in the Attitude Era, but could you see a point where maybe WWE says, okay, the only way we can get more progressive is to allow this?
Maybe in 5 to 10 years. In the immediate future, I don't think so, no. Simply because we hear so much, or have heard so much, or have heard smatterings that Vince is not one for intergender wrestling. I don't know if Triple H is one for intergender wrestling, but I would think that somebody like Triple H, who has been more open to different ideas for wrestling, would at least consider it. I don't think we'll see it in the immediate future, though.
Going to the, we kind of talked about what happened with Itami as far as, hey, he's injured and he's been replaced or whatever, but we had a few people in the group bring up that whole thing about this is why these guys shouldn't be in NXT. They're wrestling guys that don't know what they're doing, so he gets hurt and now you're not seeing him for another couple months or whatever. This is hurting his career. Obviously, there's a point to be made about that some of these guys are ready, like a Nakamura and a Joe. They don't necessarily need to be there. But obviously that's the other part of the coin with NXT, is that they're also a brand and they got to sell tickets to those shows, even if it is 200 people, or if it's the ones where they have 2,000 people or 3,000 people. They have to treat it kind of all the same. Do you feel any differently about that now? Well, like another guy that's injured, and this time it's because somebody did a move wrong, and Tommy's injured again.
I think there are certainly a lot of different ways where you could protect guys like this. Like maybe you have them wrestle other TV-ready people on these house shows. I understand the point, though, of wanting them to work with the younger talents, because that's the only way those guys are going to get better, is if they work with better wrestlers and talents who have been around longer, who can sort of help walk them through stuff and teach them things mid-match, And certainly, when it comes to somebody who I think WWE has a lot invested in, because Shinsuke and Asuka and Hideo are WWE's big attempts to take big-name Japanese stars and see if they can make it to the top of the WWE and see if they can become viable stars and crossover and everything like that. I mean, you're certainly hurting Hideo in that respect, but at the same time, you're also I think you're hurting your overall brand NXT and what it stands for if you don't have those guys work with them. So I don't know if you count it as a freak accident or if you take this as something to work with going towards the future, but maybe you have them work these kind of shows less. I don't know.
I mean, obviously, Hideo showed that he wasn't ready language-wise. His English is nowhere near as good as Nakamura's. Where Nakamura can at least cut a promo. He can at least have a sit-down promo, and he's shown that. Whereas Itami, it's just like Andrade Cien Almas. He's still going around talking Spanish. He did it on NXT this week. And it's like, as a person that speaks both languages, it's really not that hard to say, I am the icon of right now. It really isn't. I just feel like sometimes you get stuck in that crutch of, okay, they're letting me do this, so I'm going to do it, and nobody's telling me that it's wrong either, it's one of those unspoken things, I guess, right? Like, they're probably not telling him that it's wrong that he's just randomly deciding to talk Spanish, but he should probably know that there's people that are probably docking him for, you should be able to cut the promo all in English at this point. So, that part's weird to me. The thing with it Hideo too is like when he came, obviously the style was difficult for him to get used to. So he had to be there, and he had to get used to it, and he had to go through the injury for them to realize, oh, well, we probably need to give him his moveset, and we need to let him be who he is, and not try to just strip him of everything and have him be this Kenta, I don't know if you can call him Kenta Light. He was just a guy. And he was really different once he came back, so now it's kind of like, oh, man, you really wanted to see him do well, and unfortunately he's injured. But it's not like Nakamura, where Nakamura just kind of got everything from the moment he arrived. He was there. Like, you didn't need to change anything about him.
And I think that sort of speaks about the places that they come from, because obviously we see in New Japan, in really the last 3 to 5 years, there's been sort of a move to adapt Western ideas, to create these charismatic guys and stuff like the guys who can really carry themselves and build matches in the same vein that WWE sort of does. CMLL does that to a smaller extent. They're very much a older style promotion, though, so you have guys more focused on different things. And it's not so much about crossing bridges like New Japan is now, where they're trying to build an English audience too. It's still very predominantly a Mexico promotion. I think that it speaks differently to where they come from, I think, and their sort of feeling maybe on what they... Obviously, they all want success coming here, but I think they have different ideas about how they're going to go about doing that, And it's certainly for Almas... I think he maybe expected to be given a bit more than what he's been given. But ultimately, I think I don't know exactly how it's going to work out for him so far, because it doesn't seem like he's progressing anywhere other than being Guy, And I don't know if that's his fault or if that's WWE's fault or if that's simply because he seemingly refuses to try to learn English.
Yeah, it's so weird. Like, I thought the whole point was at first that was his deal. He wanted to learn English. He wanted to do all this. I mean, they had him take the mask off and he came without the mask, and it's like, if you're going to say these things, you got to understand that large part of the audience, even though yes, the network is global and there are people that probably can figure out what you're trying to say, but it affects things. Like, even Del Rio, to a certain extent, like, the crowd gets quiet when he starts talking in Spanish. They don't understand what he's saying, and it's even Carlito would do that stuff sometimes, and it's you have to understand who your predominant audience is, and that especially when you get in the main roster, you have to be able to speak to those people. You can't just be quiet. I mean, like, right now, at least you can see Asuka's trying. She seemingly every time she gets a promo, she's able to say more. Whereas with him, I know he's not been around as long as her. It's kind of concerning. And I mean, Tommy's okay. It seems like he's apparently learning English. You know, he's going to classes and stuff. Just that's what sucks is you get injured and now it's a setback again. So
Right.
you know, it's just one of these things. We'll have to see how it goes. But that's one of those things that happen with injuries. And on the main roster, these people get injured. It's not like they don't. So it doesn't matter where you are, whether you're wrestling the professionals, supposedly the super professionals, or you're wrestling the guys learning, they're still having injuries happen there. So it wouldn't really matter, except maybe we'd get to see him a little bit more because he wouldn't get injured on a house show that nobody's seeing. But,
Right.
you know. I had something and now I don't remember what it is. That kind of sucks. But yeah. Well, if it comes to my head, we'll just we'll talk about it there. But yeah. So let's move on from which we didn't even play the music because we kind of just got into it here. Let's move on from. Oh well, we'll talk about it when I get to TNA, but. Apparently, this episode of TNA that we're going to talk about later in the show almost didn't air.
Oh, boy.
Because apparently DJ Z and Mike Bennett's music is owned by somebody else. And they ran out of the licensing fee ran out. And nobody, I guess, had the money to pay the guy again. So Pop TV was considering, well, maybe we just shouldn't run this. And they decided to just run crowd noise over the music instead. I don't know if you could tell the difference or whatever, but...
TNA, what are you doing? I
don't know anymore. Like
I have no words.
You don't have anybody that goes, hey, whenever we signed this deal like a year ago, it's coming up. You might want to make sure that we re-sign this. Oh, it is? Oh, crap, wait. Oh, Pop TV might not air us? Oh, we gotta figure out something here. And apparently Dixie Carter owes Billy Corgan money personally as well that he's trying to get back. So this is just, let me tell you. Go ahead.
No, where does it stop? Everybody owes everybody money and nobody can pay things, and it's just, you're literally watching a house fall apart in front of you. And you just can't help but stare and gawk and be like, how does house work?
I'm just waiting for like somebody to go that, find out they owe a drug dealer too. That's like the last thing left.
And somehow TNA has impregnated their sister, and you just got to go full soap opera with it, I think.
Yeah, we'll get Claire Lynch back.
Yeah, call her up.
Oh, this is what it was, because Kurt Tozawa has officially ended his stay with Dragon Gate and is going to be coming over to join the Cruiserweight division or whatever. Obviously, he's another one of the wonderful Japanese talents that will be coming over, and he gets to have the nice thing of going straight to the main roster, at least in the Cruiserweight division form, while also still doing NXT stuff. Obviously, he has the charisma that's different than Itami that I think gets him over a bit more, but do you feel like he can really be something, or?
I think Tozawa can be anything the WWE wants him to be. I don't know how good his English is, but he does have a lot of work under his belt here in the States, and not only here in the States, but overseas as well, in England and other places, so... He has a lot of in-ring charisma, and that's, I know I say that about a lot of the guys they sign, but I think that's the first step for WWE. You can build to be a decent promo. I mean, obviously, there's like you look at Enzo, and that's just God-given talent right there, and that like you can't teach that. Obviously, if I may steal the term there, but certainly, I mean, Tozawa he just oozes so much in-ring personality, and he's so good at just getting himself across in the ring, and that's what that I don't think you can teach that either, honestly. But he's got a lot to give. And I don't know if he'll ever be a top guy, but I think he's certainly somebody you can rely upon to bring a good match and bring entertainment as well.
He's super smooth. He's so fast. He can get people into what he's doing. I mean, he did it in the Cruiserweight Classic easily. I think the first time people knew who he was, but in that first match, they were kind of like iffy towards him. As he went on in the tournament, people were really into what he was doing, and it was truly a shock when he lost, because he felt like one of these guys that, okay, he's got to at least be Final Four. He's got to at least be in a certain position for this, and then he loses, and you're like, man, that's crazy. But he proved through that he is terrific, and I just really hope WWE doesn't waste him, because that'd be a shame.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of guys they signed to this Cruiserweight division who it would just be an absolute shame if they wasted. And a lot of guys who left big opportunities, too. I mean, Dragon Gate's a big thing in Japan, and, obviously Grand Metalik leaving CMLL and the deal he had there and working in New Japan, and I mean, these guys left a lot of big-time opportunities to come try to make it here, and it doesn't seem like WWE is really transitioning and capitalizing on the talent that they have. And I really hope that network show for them is true, because I think that's the best of both worlds that you could capture for those guys.
Certainly. They need it, and it would certainly help them. I think we can obviously both agree on that. So I think we finally got through all this. We can now head on to other things, and mainly one of them is NXT, which we're going to start with here. So we'll be right back with some WWE NXT for this week.
WWE Developmental NXT.
Alright, well, I've had this ingrained in my head because we now have an NXT reviewer for WTMNet.com, which of course you can go visit right now and not only read this NXT review, you can read a really great article by Aaron Early on Goldberg and what his impact means. And actually, apparently, Tom, our good friend Tom that's on the podcast, sometimes he has the exact opposite article that I need to go edit, that is why Goldberg is not the match for Brock Lesnar here. So should be interesting when you have both of those up and have the two direct opposite opinions there. But yeah, so NXT, this is the last one of the previous set of tapings. This is also the one where Sandy debuts here. So we get to see them in their full regalia, and we get to see some Dusty Road Classic matches, and a really cool segment at the end that we'll get to as well. So we started off with, of course, the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic with Ty Dillinger and Bobby Roode. And Bobby Roode, man, this guy, they make his entrance so awesome every time. The spinning the platform thing that he has now, where like everybody it moves with him so you can see how glorious he is. And then the crowd gets into a battle with Dillinger and Rude between Glorious and 10 and Glorious. Of course, they're the Glorious 10. But just that whole thing was just an awesome thing in itself. Then you get Sanity coming out. They're all kind of covered with bandanas and all this kind of stuff, so you can't see who they are. Two of them are Alexander Wolf and Sawyer Fulton. Alexander Wolf, I think, is like a Scottish wrestler, if I'm not mistaken. But Sawyer Fulton's been a guy that's been around in their developmental for a long time. He was a tag team with Angelo Dawkins for a while. They had a tag name, I can't remember right now. And now they're doing this. And this match doesn't last very long because Bobby Roode just leaves Ty Dillinger high and dry. As, you'd expect from Bobby Roode because, he's an asshole. And they just beat up Ty Dillinger, and they have this sweet suplex into a press slam as their finisher. And then Nikki Cross gets revealed as one of the other members. She beats up Ty Dillinger pretty bad. She clobbers him for a while. And then the final guy, which the crowd kind of catches on to at the end, is Eric Young. So EY is officially part of NXT. I know I'm waiting for the groan here, but yeah. All things considered, you can put Eric Young aside if you want to, but how'd you feel about all this stuff here as your first segment?
This all sort of worked out how I thought it would. Bobby Roode is not a tag team wrestler, and he's certainly looking for guys, I think, to make his name off of. Ty Dillinger's one of them, and there you go, leaving him high and dry and everything. And Sanity is an interesting concept. I'm interested in them. I like Sawyer Fulton. I enjoyed his tag team with Angelo Dawkins. I thought they had something there, but they decided to pass on that. Alexander Wolf, I haven't seen too much of, although he is a former Westside Extreme Wrestling Unified World Heavyweight Champion, which it matters for something. But he made his name in Germany before coming here, so I thought they were fine. I don't think you got a terrific picture of what they were about. Nikki Cross or Nikki Storm, I'm a huge fan of, so I'm really looking forward to see what they do with her there, and I really hope that they sort of push her to be one of the front runners to challenge Asuka after you're done with the sort of extracurriculars of her challenging bigger names like Mickie James and stuff like that. But I think EY for me is a double-edged sword here because I like him in charge of this. He's a guy who's been around. He can teach these guys things, and we know he's at least a decent promo. But at the other end, I just I don't care at all about him. So double-edged sword for me on that one.
Yeah, that's the thing with EY too, is he's a good promo, so, and that's the thing, like, all these TNA guys that they brought, I mean, they're all good promos, so you don't have to worry about that aspect of it. You know what you're going to get when they get put in front of a camera, whether they have to be looking at it straight in or not. They deliver, so that's a good part, because they can help tell the story. And I really want to know what this whole Sanity is about. Why are they here? What's their purpose? I don't know. Maybe we don't get that reveal really until after the tournament or whatnot. But I did like their finish. I think that's a cool. I don't think I've seen that in a long time. Just a regular suplex, and then he does Fulton does the press slam out of it. It looked really cool. It looked really smooth. Going to be interested to see if Eric Young, we saw him in that one kind of very quick match with Samoa Joe, but if we're going to see him get to wrestle and how Nikki's moveset is going to change with her being a heel and everything, that's all going to be interesting. So for right now, Sanity, a good thing, especially because the vignettes, even though they were short, they were cool. They got you intrigued, so they have my interest for now. Going ahead and talking about the other Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic match, which was the longest match on the show. It went a couple of segments, if I'm not mistaken. You get Tino Samatelli and Riddick Moss, the guy that unfortunately injured Hideo Itami, against TM61. TM61 win after hitting the Thunder Valley. This went about, I think 8 or 9 minutes. Tino Samatelli looked decent in the moves that he got to do. That power slam he does was pretty impactful. Of course, TM61, they're so good. That stalling suplex felt like he was up there forever, and he was doing it like no big deal. Just, TM61, we know what they are in the ring. Just, they still have that thing that they're missing, I feel.
I think part of it is the booking of the match. I thought this was too 50-50 for my taste, and TM61, I don't want to say they should have dominated, because obviously you have to make it look like Riddick Moss and Tino Sabatelli sort of belong in the tournament. But certainly, I don't think you needed to give them as much offense as they got. And I think that's been the big problem. TM61 has been booked as underdog without really having an underdog, or without really having that big team to fight against. Not like not like DIY and Ciampa and Gargano, who have really gotten a flourish in the roles that they've been given. And TM61's just been in the background. They haven't really had a chance to sort of break out and do anything super big or anything like that.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, we've seen, I don't remember which one it is, that got to show some personality when they were given the opportunity when they first showed up. And even if you got to do promos like that with them, it's not a bad thing. Maybe when they're not wrestling, they cut a little funny promo, or they just to show that, hey, we're not just guys that go out there and wrestle and we don't have a lot of personality or whatever. All those little things help sometimes, especially in a situation where sometimes NXT gets in this rut where only certain storylines get story and then the rest of people are just out there wrestling.
Right, yeah, because I don't even think TM61 has had a major feud or anything like it. Nothing that's been highlighted or at least lasted week to week, so certainly they need something there. And it might have to do with the lack of depth as far as heels go in the tag team division, but because they're building up the Authors of Pain, and you have the Revival worried about DIY and everything like that. So,
yeah, that was the thing. They had them in that one thing where they were kind of the third wheel in the DIY and Revival thing for a little bit, but that was it. Like, there was nothing else to that other than, oh, okay, well, they lost the one match. All right. It's that kind of defeated the purpose, but hopefully it's just, we've seen this with NXT sometimes where some of these guys go in the hole for a while and then they come out the other end and they finally have stories and whatnot. And I think part of it too with the Tino Sabatelli is anybody that ever has some kind of sports background, they don't just feed him to the wolves a lot of times. And he's another one of those guys. I think also they might have put a little bit too much stock in the fact that he was on Breaking Ground and somebody might have cared about him, but that didn't come off here.
I mean, he got chance.
Right.
It wasn't anything large, but he did get chance. So, I mean, there is something there, I guess, to work with. I mean, and it might just be, Full Sail being Full Sail, but I don't know. He looked fine enough, and Riddick Moss I didn't get a great picture of, but I'd be okay with seeing more of Tino. I mean, I'd like to get a picture of him before I make a decision,
I think the thing with Tino is he either headlines or he is a large part of those smaller shows. So I think those fans see him a lot, and a lot of those fans that go to the NXT tapings, they're also the same ones that kind of go to some of these smaller shows, and that's why you get the chance, I think, for him. And not to mention, like we've talked about before, Full Sail kind of gets attached to some people. Even if they never become anything on the main roster, they're still like, Ascension, obviously one of the first ones. Just they somehow became these lovable guys after they just dominated that division forever. And then, of course, they went on WWE and did nothing, but they're still there doing nothing. But,
that's WWE's fault.
Right. It's WWE because they could have been if they hadn't decided, okay, we're going to be Legion of Doom ripoffs really badly. But, that's their decision, and obviously the Ascension has to suffer because of it. The one women's segment that we had here is the continuing Mean Girls of Billie Kay and Peyton Royce taking on Liv Morgan. Liv Morgan, obviously the underdog in this whole thing. Nobody likes Jersey, and I love the fact that Corey Graves just has to cut on Jersey every time he gets a chance just to to hit on that, even though you did literally have that one person chanting for her in the crowd. That was funny.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I'd chant too. I like the guy.
I know you're a big fan of Billie Kay. She's still, obviously, people are getting used to her being there and developing a character, because her and Peyton Royce don't get much of a reaction, and Liv gets a little bit, but it's not like overwhelming or anything.
Yeah, I mean, I like what they're doing here. I like what they're trying to do. They're using these girls' stock to try to build them up together, and I think that makes a lot of sense. And especially if they can learn to grow together, this could be your next big pair of matches that, you know, like Sasha and Charlotte have, where they know each other so well and everything. And I think both girls have the talent to be up there with those girls and everything. Billie Kay, I think the world of, obviously. Liv Morgan, she's growing on me. I think she has a very energetic character. I think she's what WWE wanted Carmella to be initially. Because she's got this fire in her and everything that really comes across well. And I really want to see Billie Kay do well. I think she absolutely deserves it. She's a great wrestler. She's better than the performance she put on here, but I think Billie Kay and Peyton Royce is a dynamite pairing. It's something that could lead to at least something that Asuka can deal with for maybe a month or two.
Yeah, certainly, and just that's the thing. Like, there's a gap right now. You got Ember Moon, and you got Asuka, and then you've got that tier below, and then you've got a tier below, like those 3 or 4. So they're really having to build back up this women's division, and it's something that probably is just gonna like you know, we've talked about. The reason why they're bringing in Mickie James is because of this, because they don't have anybody that they go, okay, this person we feel can draw in this setting. And I'm sure they're testing house shows with it that there's not probably a whole lot of interest. Now, to be fair, this was the last episode of the taping, so people, you know, the fans do kind of get tired at this point. It's going to be interesting what they do, obviously, when you get to that first set of tapings. But, yeah, we have another one of these matches here, too, where this kind of falters a bit, because you're, number one, this thing with Murphy and Blake has been like such an on and off deal for I don't know how many times they've started this thing. Alexa Bliss left, it was a thing, then they stopped having them on for months or whatever. I think one of them got hurt, and so you didn't see them, and then, oh, we're starting this off again, and then they're the main event, even though it's more of an angle than a match. But you get the one big sunset, the Tope con Hilo by Blake on Murphy, and then here comes Samoa Joe to wreck house and get Nakamura to come out. And then Nakamura and Joe wind up having a fantastic brawl. This was great. I mean, I'm not talking about like Undertaker and Brock Lesnar levels, but this was pretty cool, just seeing them both go at it, and then Nakamura would get pissed and he'd go back at him, and Joe would get mad, and they even went to the back, and they came back through the back and into the ring again, and Nakamura gives him the Kinshasa, and he stands tall. But great way to end the show, certainly, but I don't know about that match.
I like Blake and Murphy personally. I enjoyed their tag run. I mean, and maybe Alexa Bliss was a big part of that too, but they certainly, I think, have something to give to the main roster, whether it's the tag team or individually. They have something there. It just sucks that they have to take a back seat, but it's really hard to complain because Joe and Nakamura, I think, knocked this out of the park. The brawl was great. I'd really like their next match. If there was a false count anywhere in the building or something like that, I think that'd be awesome. Or even just a submission match, I think that'd be great too. So really just letting these guys, I think, go all out in this next match would be great.
The rumor is that it's a loser leaves NXT match.
Ho-ho. Oh.
You know,
well, now.
I mean, Survivor Series having the big weekend where you have that Raw after, where I guess they're going to do all these shows now. Would be an interesting time to debut a Samoa Joe. Maybe Brock beats Goldberg and Samoa Joe comes out as his next opponent or something?
I think you're dreaming too much, buddy.
That would be amazing, but I don't know. I mean, either one obviously would not be bad, but I just don't see, like, after all this stuff you've done with Joe, like, he deserves to at least be on the main roster for a little bit.
No, I completely agree with that. I just, I don't know. For me, I'll believe Brock will face somebody who's not a big name or near the top of the roster when I see it. And, I mean, if he's not going to wrestle Kevin Owens, for God's sakes, he's not going to wrestle Samoa Joe,
I mean, he does have the history with Nakamura. We could see that happen again.
I mean, I'm sure that could happen at some point, but for me, I really think they'd be doing themselves more harm than good. Joe, I think, would be a terrific surprise Rumble entrant and something that they should wait for, especially if they're going to keep on doing takeover events before the Big Four, which I think makes a lot of sense because you could certainly have a qualifier match on the takeover special before the Rumble, and the winner of that gets a spot in there, and that would obviously do very well. And if Joe wins that, I think it'd be great. So I don't know. I kind of like there's a lot to gain from a loser leaves NXT, but I think it'd be better to sit on that step, to be honest.
I agree with you, but I think this is one where if you're gonna do it, this is the match to kind of do it because it's two guys that you could literally believe that either one could lose because both of them are ready. You don't want to do it with, say, like Nakamura and whoever his next person is because nobody's going to believe that the other person is going to be the one that, nobody's going to believe at that point that Nakamura is going to lose. Like I think it's two guys that are obviously equal and two guys that people have felt like, okay, a lot of people felt like Nakamura shouldn't even be there to begin with. And then Joe's been there a while and have said, okay, he should be gone by now. I just don't know if you sit on this and not to mention go even longer with this feud than it needs to right now. I think it's kind of that time to have Joe go and have Nakamura finally cement, okay, here's the next wave of NXT, and he's going to be kind of that. I don't know if he's going to be there as long as Finn. Probably not. I wouldn't be surprised if he shows up in the Rumble.
Mm-hmm.
But
I think Nakamura's a Raw after Mania debut, honestly. For me, whoever lists the NXT Championship off of Nakamura, I kind of hope is somebody who comes out of nowhere. That'd be really everybody we've seen for like the last, really, I think since Sami Zayn won the championship, we've been able to pretty much 100% tell you this is where they changed the belt. This is where they changed the belt. This is where they changed the belt. I'd really love it if some nobody just came up and knocked Shinsuke off. Imagine the rub that guy would get,
Oh, certainly. But, I mean, I don't know that you want, like... Oh, he's... Actually, Ty Dillinger would probably be actually a good... He wouldn't need it too bad, honestly, if he did.
Yeah, like a Ty or, if Almas gets going, you could do that. I mean, I'm pretty sure Bobby Roode is bound for that NXT Championship come hell or high water at some point. And I
Bobby
honestly...
Roode could be the guy to take it off of him.
See, I think Roode would be the guy to take it off Nakamura, honestly. Just because I think that's sort of the way they're going, and Roode would make there's a great feud to be had, I think, between a Nakamura, somebody who is here to prove he's the best wrestler, and Bobby Roode, who wants to be the superstar kind of guy, who's attracting all these big names to arenas and whatever, and all that good stuff. And there's an interesting feud to be had there for sure, but there's a part of me that kind of wants like somebody who's not below the radar to win that championship and sort of put themselves on the map, and you build a guy that way, and then you have Roode win the belt or something,
This is so surreal. There's now a picture of Triple H and Roderick Strong shaking hands. This is weird.
What's happening? 2016, what are you doing?
And it's like we still got 2 months of 2016 left. And, supposedly those people their contracts are ending in December or whatever. Like, imagine if we have another January that starts with people going somewhere. Just, 2016, 17, we're going to go through it all over again.
God help us all.
Yeah. Well, that's going to do it for NXT here. We're going to move on and talk about some Lucha Underground. Let's do that right now.
Let's do it.
All right, boom.
All right, so Lucha opens, of course, with the usual video package that recaps everything that's going to matter on this episode, and then they come up. Dragon Azteca is suiting up in the back, getting ready for his match that he's going to have with Pentagon Dark that he beat Chavo Guerrero for. However, Chavo attacks him because he wants the match with Pentagon Dark first, so he beats him up. They do this really neat thing production-wise where they switch the camera view to look like you're seeing out of Dragon Azteca's eyes, and you get to see Chavo whack the chair over his head, and it looks a little fake, but it's kind of cool, and then they sort of, like, after the last shot, the camera sort of dims out like he's sort of going unconscious, and Rey Mysterio walks past after Chavo's done. They have this stare down, and then Rey sees Dragon Azteca down in the corner, and then he really poorly yells out Chavo like Kirk yelling out Khan in in Star Trek 2. It's pretty funny.
Oh my god. That's honestly, you need to just go watch this thing.
Yeah, it's hilarious. It really is.
Chavo!
Chavo! It's bad. I think me and Sean just did it better than he did, honestly. And then you get your opening match, Dr. Wagner Jr. teaming up with his manager, Famous B, to take on Son of Havoc and Masquerita Sagrada. Obviously, Famous B's former client Sagrada still has an axe to grind with both guys. Dr. Wagner cost Son of Havoc his Ultima Lucha Tres main event spot that he wanted. And so that's why this is happening. You get a pretty fun little 6-minute tag here. They sort of isolate Sagrada for a bit. They take out Havoc. Wagner hits the Dr. Bomb, or the Dr. Driver, or the Wagner Driver, whatever it's called, on Sagrada. And then Famous B wants the tag. He goes in, takes out the stethoscope, and holds it over Sagrada's chest to get the 3 count, which is kind of funny. But I kind of dig the pairing of Famous B and Dr. Wagner, honestly.
Yeah, I've liked it too. There's been nothing about this that I have not enjoyed. They have really played this up well because they made it into a joke with Sagrada and all this stuff, and then they finally give him a serious guy, obviously, doing the lucha thing where you use an old guy to as much as, normally if this was any other type of promotion, we would be complaining about the fact they're using a 50-plus-year-old guy to really put him in a spot. But so far it's a mid-card feud, and I think at the end it's going to do something for Son of Havoc if it hasn't already. So if that's what you get out of it, then it's obviously a positive.
I honestly thought they put Son of Havoc in here so they could get the fans to kind of get invested even a bit more, because they do. The live crowd enjoys Sagrada, and Famous B gets heat and all this stuff, but they're really into Havoc, and I don't think the temple is his. The temple surely belongs to another man that we're going to talk about on this show, but I think they're certainly invested in the journey that Son of Havoc has been placed on as far as trying to get that Lucha Underground championship and everything.
He's that lovable guy. Like, I don't know how you can't not like him. He's been through so much stuff, and he is kind of like that the closest you're going to get to sort of the Daniel Bryan character or something like that, where he's been through so much stuff. He got his title shot taken away, everything else, and now he's having to kind of start from the bottom again. But you want him to be bigger than he is. And I think at the end, you might see the crowd really get behind him to the point where they might have to do something.
I think they will at some point, and I think it's only just a matter of time, really. Same as it is for another couple of guys that show up on the show too. But we get a couple segments next. Dario, we get a spot that Dario's Dial of Doom returns next week, so somebody's going to get a title shot against Matanza and probably die mercilessly. And Prince Puma will also get to go one-on-one with Mil Muertes, I'm assuming, and that will be the main event. And then we have the Gift of the Gods Championship match. The Sexy Star defends against Jack Evans. Before the match, Evans grabs a microphone and says that he wants Sexy to know that he's a fair man, and lets her know that this is going to be the last match of her career. He's going to leave her beaten and broken and bloodied and all that good stuff. And he's not only going to be known as the Dragon Slayer, but he's going to be known as the Star Destroyer. And I kind of like the idea of Jack Evans' gimmick just being wanting to collect nicknames.
Yeah, just do that. That's not bad. I was gonna say, like, that's just a nice segue from one to the other. You know, you're a dragon killer and a Star Destroyer. I mean, why not?
Why not? Yeah. And I mean, he comes up short here, even with help from the rest of his Worldwide Underground partners in PJ Black and Johnny Mundo. But this is we're tap dancing around the feud here. The Mundo clearly sees Sexy Star as a weakness, and they're building a feud there. The Trios champions, Aerostar and Drago, they come out and sort of take out the PJ and Mundo, so that way Sexy Star can retain her championship after hitting him with a kendo stick and then low blowing him, and then hitting him with that spinning neck breaker. And yeah, I enjoyed this match. I thought it was one of Sexy Star's better matches we've seen here in the Temple, but I don't know if I like her having to go to the low blow.
Yeah, they should be better than that if, you know, we're trying to, again, try to be progressive and show that, you know, they can match up just as well with them. And Jack Evans is a small guy, so it's not like... I can understand if we're having her go against Mil Muertes or something and she has to go for the low blow, but not Jack Evans.
Yeah, certainly not Jack Evans, yeah. That sort of depression aside, we get to go backstage to Dario in his office with Chavo. He tells him that Dragon Azteca is in the hospital. Ray interrupts, and he knows Chavo beat up Dragon, obviously, so he wants to face Pentagon in Dragon Azteca's stead. Dario makes it to where Chavo and Ray will face Pentagon in a three-way match, but Ray and Chavo have this absolutely lame kung fu fight that I kind of groaned during. Mostly, I usually like these. They're funny and kind of cool at times, but this was just bad.
Well, it's Chavo, so you know it's bad.
I guess that's a fair point. It is Chavo. Dario, at the end of that segment, Dario grabs a microphone, which I kind of wish they would do that more, of segueing the backstage segments out into the live stuff. He runs out after Melissa Santos announces Pentagon Dark, who the Temple is just so 2,000% behind. It's his place. That is his Temple. That's his everything, I think, and he's the guy to make out of all this. And he gets in there with Ray and Chavo, and they have a fine match. It's your typical three-way sort of style where you have essentially different one-on-one matches going on throughout the whole thing. But, Pentagon ends up going over. He hits a package pile driver on Chavo. And Chavo, of course, tries to attack Rey Mysterio post-match, and that doesn't work out for him either. And also, Pentagon tries to break Rey's arm, which Rey gets out of as well. And then Chavo sort of goes nuts on Rey and goes at him with a chair and bashes his knee pretty seriously. I don't know if I really dig Chavo being this big badass guy that he is, but certainly not the worst thing I've ever seen him do, to be honest.
Wow, Chavo's booking himself right now. What are you doing, Chavo? But it's also because we've seen Chavo and Ray. I'm not big about rehashing feuds we've seen. Lucha Underground could be better than that. You know?
I agree. And for what it's worth, I think it's sort of about trying to build Dragon Azteca up some. I'd really dig it if Chavo had another young guy with him, though. I think that would be great.
Yeah, he's old enough to want to. He tried having the posse with the
with the crew.
With the crew, and that didn't work. And he tried having guys on the side. He always winds up screwing that up. So Chavo's just one of those guys. He can't have people on his side because he winds up screwing him over. It's like temptation he cannot get away from. Chavo.
I guess that's fair, but certainly there's got to be some kid out there who doesn't mind being the whipping boy for a while, you know?
I agree. There should be that person there. But you know,
Yeah,
we'll have
it
to
is
see
Chavo.
what they do with Chavo.
Maybe just nobody can stand him that much.
Well, who can stand him?
That's true.
That's what I want. So that's
your Lucha, though.
Yeah, that is Lucha Underground. So we go from that to whatever's left of TNA Impact Wrestling.
Scraps at this point, I think, but let's talk about it, Sean.
Let's do so.
TNA Impact Wrestling.
Alrighty, so of course last week Eddie Edwards won the world title from Lashley, so he comes out to have his talk about it, and he talks about 14 years of hard work, and he'd be a fighting champion, and he's going to beat Lashley again, and Lashley came in and basically he's not doing this. He choked Eddie Edwards, and he tried to take the title from him, but Eddie fought back, and, well, when Lashley gives no fucks, here comes the spear, and that's what happens here, and we get a chair. He goes against a chair, and then Moose and EC3 come out, and, yeah, we're getting more of this Moose, EC3, all this stuff around the title with Moose and EC3.
Yeah, this is interesting in the way that I kind of dig Eddie Edwards getting the championship, but at the same time, like I said last week, I really wish he had some build around him before he got the title. I don't think the crowd is really invested in Eddie as much as they have been at certain points in the past, and I think it showed here because the crowd was sort of flat for all of this, and they're usually into, especially whenever EC3 shows up, they usually prop pretty good, and they didn't care. They didn't care at all.
Yeah, this is only this, well, I mean, I know they tape stuff out of order sometimes, but this is only the second tapings. Like, man, they were gassed already by then.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy. You get the, not that anybody's probably caring at this point, but the Tribunal runs into freaking Aiden O'Shea. Lord. They want to talk to Rock and Roll Billy, of course, Billy Corgan, and O'Shea says that he is not impressed. And, yeah,
When did Aiden O'Shea become Billy Corgan's sort of like go-to bodyguard, knowing thing guy? How does he know the Tribunal's on the bubble? Obviously, I mean, they haven't done anything, but how do you know that?
I don't know, but this just feels like, hey, he has nothing to do. Let's make him the bodyguard. Okay. Whatever. We get the Grand Championship being defended here against Jesse Goddard. And Goddard actually wins the first round after they go back and forth. And Goddard's actually got in the Adonis lock and everything. Goddard's even went in and run round 2. Man, just Jesse Goddard's owning Aaron Rex in this thing so far. And then Aaron Rex winds up winning with the Revelator, so it didn't matter that Jesse Goddard's got the 2 first rounds because Aaron Rex was able to win decisively in the 3rd round. This is an actual good use of the 3 rounds thing. You put the odds against Aaron Rex, even though I still don't know what Aaron Rex is supposed to be. Sometimes he's a face, sometimes he's a heel. It's weird. And yeah, he wins in that 3rd round where he's up against it. So this is a really well done Grand Championship.
Yeah, I thought this was a really good use of the round system too, making Aaron Rex be desperate and sort of trying to come out of his shell and work a style we're more familiar with, where he gets to act like a little bit of a dick. Excuse me. I think Jesse looked good here too. I'd really be okay with Aaron Rex turning heel, and that way, whenever Drew Galloway comes back, you have another face to sort of switch in and out there, and turning that whole feud on its head might actually make it sort of interesting. So.
Yeah, I would like to see that, and I was impressed with Jesse Goddard's here too, because I think Jesse Goddard really doesn't get enough credit for how good he's actually turned into. He's been getting better, and he just doesn't get enough time on TV to really show that. And he's actually a decent promo too, so it's one of these guys that perhaps WWE looks at. I mean, obviously WWE might look at it and say, "Oh, it's another Chris Masters or something like that," but I think he deserves to get a look from WWE if, let's say TNA has to go down.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be upset if he ends up in the NXT train or something like that, but I honestly wonder if he would even stick with it. I don't even know if he wrestles anywhere else but TNA, to be honest with you.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we know he could go back to doing the reality show stuff, but I wonder if he really enjoys enough to I'm sure if WWE can call him, he's not going to say no, but we'll see if they get to that point. I mean, hopefully for TNA this doesn't happen, but just talking hypotheticals here. The Broken Hardys, obviously, they are now champions after winning at the Great War, and Brother Nero kind of seems like he's ready to go back to his old ways, and Broken Matt's telling him, "Look, man, I let you indulge in your addiction again. Let's usher in the Broken Era once again." And so we get Matt talking with telling us that he's happy that he won the titles, that they set on this big odyssey. They just can't. I love how he just keeps putting this thing in here. He talks about that they're even better than the Bucks of Youth and the Day of New. Oh my God, seriously. So, yeah, this was just more great stuff from Broken Hardys. Except now they have to wrestle the freaking Tribunal. Ugh.
Well, you just delete them, you move on, all is well.
I hope that's all this is. I really hope that's all this is.
This is the problem.
A 3-month feud with the Tribunal.
Yeah. Oh God, no, please. I mean, this is what I think the problem is. TNA, they're obviously their tag division isn't really all that deep, and you sort of end up in this situation where there's not a team around who I think could easily dethrone the Hardys unless you build some super team out of the main event.
Right. I mean, and there's nothing that, they could keep him for a while. I mean, it doesn't really matter. It's not like the fans are going to get really upset about them being champions for a long time. Just them beating down the smaller teams until TNA either signs other people or whatever. But, Matt Hardy is going around on Twitter asking ROH if the Bucks of Youth can show up on that episode of TNA that's supposed to be from the Hardy compound.
Said he would show up on Ring of Honor in return, which I would love to see him interact with some of the old gang that he used to run with there before he went to TNA full time.
That would be amazing. Or just, well, he was part of like Scum and stuff, right? Or he was part of the.
He did do the Scum thing, and then he ran with the Kingdom for a while.
Yeah, see, you can go over there and remind Adam Cole what he used to before he was in the Bullet Club or whatever.
Oh boy.
Could you imagine, like, Broken Matt Hardy and just the Club of Bullets?
Oh dear.
Where are you?
Oh dear.
Man, they would, what they would do with that. I'd imagine just Broken Matt would eat super kicks, but you never know. You never know. We do get more Cody and Brandy Rhodes against Mike. We get the Cody and Brandy Rhodes against, it's Cody against Mike Bennett, really. This was look, Mike Bennett is what he is. And thankfully we just got mostly them. It wasn't a lot of the women getting involved here. You knew who was going to win, too, which that's what kind of hurts this match a little bit, I think. But it was good, just, nothing too special.
I didn't think it was anything too special either. I don't really know why Cody was so intent on wrestling Mike Bennett, but, it is what it is. I thought this was still pretty good. This was probably one of the better things we've seen Mike Bennett do in TNA since he got here, which is something. But other than that, I mean, he was just here to make Cody look good. That's it.
Not a bad thing to do when you're trying to really push Cody here. Exhibition title match that goes a total of about 4.5 minutes. DJZ against Marche Rocket. This was okay, but again, not a whole lot you're going to do in about 4.5 minutes here.
Yeah, typical X Division stuff. Nobody gets over. Moving on.
Literally, that's what's happening here.
Yep.
We do get to find out that Moose is on the journey to the TNA Championship. You ready for this with Moose?
Yeah, I like Moose. He hasn't been terrific here in TNA, but I think him and Lashley can work really well together. I'm really looking forward to that match, at least.
Yeah, exactly. A match I certainly was not looking forward to, really. The Knockouts title no DQ match between Gail Kim, the champion, against Maria getting her rematch. Madison Rayne is on commentary because, her and Josh Matthews married, so why not have your wife out there? Seriously. Look, this was okay. I mean, you don't have to wrestle in this match, so that helps Maria. But, it's this whole feud. Can we just end it, please?
Yeah, I'm kind of glad this was 5 minutes. If it was any longer, I might have started poking my eyes out. Maria is what she is. I think she's a good promo. She's entertaining. She's not a wrestler. It's just, I don't think it's in her. And I think they did what they could. And, I mean, the finishing spot with the eating defeat with a trash can lid I thought was cool. But other than that, I really hope this is over.
Well, they never haven't done anything with Allie yet, so I imagine it's not going to be. Or maybe the focus is on Maria and Allie from now on.
I mean, but can we get at least you move on to that, and then you have Gail Kim in the championship do something else.
God, please. Just please. Make it about the women's wrestling again. Not about this storyline. That would be nice.
Yeah.
So, we do get Cody checking in on Eddie Edwards. Because Eddie Edwards is hurt from the spear, right?
Right, and they're going to have a TNA World Title match next week, which is Cody wanted him at 100%, and he's sort of back there telling him that he didn't want to fight him in this condition.
And, of course, Eli Drake also has to be an asshole to the other asshole, EC3. And Drake's like, hey, remember you choke a lot in these big matches. I like the fact that I thought the promo where it wasn't anything, overly long or whatever, but it worked for both guys. And you get EC3 and Moose. This didn't go very long, as you'd imagine with Moose. Really doesn't need to be going in long matches at this point. It was about 7 minutes, and it wasn't overly good either.
I didn't think it was great, but it wasn't bad. It was very, very average, and maybe that's not what you want when you have EC3 and Moose, who are two guys you have big at working in your main event. And by the way, who would have guessed that putting anybody with EC3 would automatically make them interesting, like an Eli Drake? Who would ever guess that? That's crazy talk. But this match was okay. It was. I don't know. Moose needs a lot of wins, and I think EC3 sort of needs a little bit of rebuilding. So it felt like it was kind of hard to get into the match.
Yeah, it's hard because it feels like EC3's kind of been just there a little bit for a while. And so it's like, man, he used to have all this steam around him, and now he kind of doesn't. So you're not really used to that with EC3. And then you get Moose, who they're trying to build on, and it's like, what do you do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, EC3 is a character who just works so much better as a or as a heel. I don't know exactly. I didn't think his face turn was going to last as long as it has, and it was great working with Drew, and it was fine in the initial months with Lashley, but I think he needs a switch back.
Yeah, he does. And maybe the stuff with Drew is finally going to be what... I don't know that it will, but perhaps it is what propels him to that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's TNA. We'll continue to be on TNA watch and see what happens week to week.
Will they live or will they die? Only the courts know.
Right? Only the courts know what's going to happen here. But, yeah, we got one more thing we got to do here. We got to do that Superstar of the Week. So let's get to that.
Let's do it.
Superstar of the Week.
All right.
It's only now that I realize we're so used to doing this as a three-man operation. How are we going to do this with just you and me?
How are we going to do this? And you know what we forgot about? No mercy counts on this too?
Oh boy. It sure does.
Oh, so now we get to have a live brainstorm session again. Well, Dolph has to be in there. Probably pretty high.
I think both Dolph and AJ have to make it on here.
Well, that knocks off the TNA folks that we really didn't want to have on there anyway. Okay, Okada still, I think, we get 5 because they had the best match.
Oh, absolutely.
And that was borderline almost 5 stars. Not that Dolph... and I think Dolph and Miz is probably... I think that edges out Omega and Goto for me. It had the story and everything that Omega and Goto doesn't have.
It did have the story.
So, I think Dolph gets the 4
I think Dolph gets... Yeah.
And then, are we giving AJ 2 or 1? Because Omega gets 3.
Yeah, Omega gets 3. I think we give AJ 2.
Okay. And give Shibata 1.
Shibata gets the 1, yeah.
Alright, so we get 1 point. It's Katsuri Shibata. And he, of course, we talked about it on well, it was technically taped on Tuesday night, but the regular Part 1 episode, the King of Pro Wrestling event, he had a terrific match with Kyle O'Reilly. Something you should probably go out of your way to see, honestly. If you have New Japan World, or even if you don't, you can go find it there. They had a terrific match, and he defended his title, so he deserves to have that 1 point.
Absolutely. And he also went... he had a great match with Kyle O'Reilly on ROH TV this week, too, where you get to see him lose there. So maybe that's why he gets 1 point. He went 50-50. Take that.
Yeah. And then you get number 2, which, of course, we talked about it on our No Mercy review. Paul, terrific match from AJ. And
absolutely.
And involved.
Yeah, AJ Styles, Dean Ambrose, John Cena went out there, killed it. Excuse me. They had an absolutely terrific match. You could question the finish maybe, and Styles tapping out to both, and ultimately I don't think anything really got solved in that match, but it was great. AJ retains, and that's certainly worth 2 points.
And he also can't go any higher because then he lost to James Ellsworth on SmackDown. So,
James is so over.
Yes. Too bad we can't put him on this list. But
Right.
he really could deserve some points if we didn't have so much going on this week. But number 3 is Kenny Omega. He had another terrific match with Hiroki Goto. This man has been on fire. Another one of these. God, when we get to that, like when we have to make the awards, this is gonna be such a nasty year to have to go through and try to figure out who wins things. I know we have the points and technically that would win, but when you actually have to think about it objectively outside of these points, man, it's gonna be so hard. But yeah, Kenny Omega totally deserves those 3 points. Fantastic match that you should also go out of your way to try to see.
I mean, continuing to make the discussion for maybe Wrestler of the Year very difficult. Dolph Ziggler gets 4. Him and The Miz went out there. I think they stole the show. They put on the best match of No Mercy. The story's been incredible. I've enjoyed every second of it. The promos and the elevation that both guys have been able to achieve working with each other is just incredible. And Ziggler winning the IC title is a big deal, especially when his career was on the line, so he gets the 4 points this week.
Yeah, 5-time Intercontinental Champion. There's something to be said for that. But number 5, only to be bested by one Kazuchika Okada, because him and Naomichi Marufuji had a tremendous match that will leave you wanting more when it is over. Just great stuff from both men. Okada wins, decisively puts Marufuji away, and then now the Wrestle Kingdom 11 main event is set. Kenny Omega and Okada.
Yeah, 1-on-1 in the Tokyo Dome for the main event. I don't like Omega's chances, but you want to talk about how weird a year 2016 has been for wrestling. Okada he used the Emerald Flosion to put Marufuji down before he hit the Rainmaker. That was surreal in and of itself.
It was already surreal enough having Marufuji use it the time that he did. This is now Okada doing it is crazy too. And that Wrestle Kingdom is going to be on a Wednesday, of all things.
I hate that they're so dedicated to a day.
Yeah, it's January 4th, because it's like Wednesday. Come on. Like, well, we know what we're doing that Wednesday night.
Yeah.
But all right. That will mean that we have come to the end of this episode, guys. The good thing is, it's the last episode where it's just me and Paul. As weird and fun this has been, it's going to be awesome to be able to welcome back Gary. Hopefully everything goes well the last few days he has on that cruise. And then we'll be back to everything regular, because I've had to be off of the football show, which sadly it really sucks to not have been able to do. I can't even do the college show because he's my co-host. I don't have another person for that. And, it has put everything upside down as far as our network goes, as far as, having to get other people to vote in our polls and stuff like that, because he's not around. So I'll be so glad to have everything back on schedule when Gary returns. But until then, guys, make sure that I can't stress this enough. If you enjoy this show, and we had somebody on Twitter, so shout out to Patrick on Twitter, you know who you are, that was talking to Paul and I about, Paul mentioning AFI and everything in the last episode. That's cool that somebody's going out there and talking to us about things we talk about on the show. But if you really want us to gain more an audience, and you want more people to be able to enjoy what you enjoy here, you go rate and review on your podcast application of choice, whether it's iTunes, whether it's Stitcher, whether it's Podcast Addict, whether it's TuneIn Radio or Google Play or whatever that we're on. You listen to us. If you rate us there, that only helps us so that we are available to more people. It's a weird system what that does, but the more reviews you get, the higher ranked you are, and obviously more people get to know that you exist without having to search for you. So that's always a plus. Of course, you can go visit WTMnet.com for all of our written stuff, and of course we do post the podcast there and stuff like that. I've gotten to a good groove of being able to post the podcast pretty well. But you can check out Paul's Lucha Underground review, maybe that he'll get in there. We've had lots of posts too. I said the Goldberg one, the Total Bellas episode 2 reviews up there. Some other stuff with either football or games or anything. It's all there for you. So go check out the site. Let us know what you like, what you don't like. That helps out as well. And of course, subscribe to that W2 Network for the rest of our great shows. Check out the Arena Football. They almost had they had to apparently have some kind of meeting where they had to decide whether they were going to continue on for next season or not, because they lost a bunch of teams to this other league. So now they only have 4 teams in Arena Football, but they're going to continue on apparently. So, you can find out about that, how that happened. They broke the news on that podcast. Go check out This Week in the AFL. You can go listen to Foxy and Squid, where they got into some heated political discussion, and it was great to listen to be there as the producer live. It was hilarious. And, go check out the rest of the stuff. And until then, everybody, we will see you later.
Yes, sir. Y'all have a good one.
The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.